Hey guys, good Sunday afternoon to you. I'm glad everybody who's showing up is showing up. Hey Daniel Rowan, if you're hanging out there in internet land, hi, and jump on and say hi. And if you haven't already done so, please click the subscribe button. And I think the bell icon auto clicks these days, but I always like it rolls a little better when I say click the subscribe button and the bell icon for notifications. Anyway, normally, what I do is I talk a lot about tabletop RPGs, or I'll get called into other discussions to talk about other kind of propeller head topics. But uh, I'm not gonna do like a big build up and have Doc Severinsen play him on or anything. Tim said, "Hey, we should talk about our pets because I've had a hell of a past 7 days that seem to be having a pretty good ending." So here's Tim. Hey, Tim.
Chloe. Hello. How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. But anyway, so yeah, we're gonna talk pets. We're not gonna talk about D&D. We're not gonna talk about finance. We're not gonna talk about physics. We're not gonna talk about politics, which I never talk about anyway.
And I was told there would be no math.
There is no math.
All
There is
right.
no math. No
I'm
math
happy,
today.
so happy.
No, we're just so for the one or two of the literal tens of people who follow me and watch my show on social media, who may not know, last Saturday, my elderly Labrador Zeus suffered an attack of vertigo, and I mean it attacked him. It got him really bad, and like he couldn't get out of his little soft-sided enclosure that he sleeps in. And that was a horrible mess. Don't even, I still have stuff to hose off from that. And we got him out. We took him to the vet, and at noon on Saturday, I didn't know if I was going to leave the emergency vet with a pet or not. It was, I mean, any of us who have pets, unless your pet is a Galapagos tortoise, or one of those sharks that lives up around Iceland, those cold water sharks, or a parrot, odds are you have probably outlived at least one of your pets, and it sucks. And I hate it. There's a meme, a cartoon. It's not a meme. It's just a cartoon, and it's titled "God Creates Dogs," and he's just sitting looking at a little collection of statuettes, saying, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna want all these back as quick as I can get them," and that's the unfortunate truth. And Zeus, being a Labrador, is we got him in the fall of 2012. And we think he was maybe a year, possibly too old. It's 2025. Labs live like on the outside, unless you're talking about some bizarre like Guinness Book of World Records that lives for 16, 17, 18 years. Labs generally 12 to 15 years, and that's it. So I thought last Saturday was the last roundup, and it has been this slow healing process. He went from don't want to eat, don't want to drink, just want to lie here and have a low-grade fever and piddle myself, to he's hopping up and doing his thing anyway. So thank you everyone for your outpouring of support. Tim, talk about pets.
So, the thing I like about even this crazy one,
Oh,
who is 9 years old now, is I have three pets, and for if anybody who follows me on social media, I have a dog, a tarantula, and a snake. Some of them are more fuzzy than others. But the thing I like,
fuzzy.
Blueberry is fuzzy, but I actually pet Blueberry once, and I think she was more freaked out about it than I was. But she was fully fed, so I wasn't like, she's not going to bite me. But the thing I like about them is they're sort of unconditional, right? A lot of things in your life become conditional, and whether or not somebody likes you at the end of the day, it might be conditional on a set of things. Dogs, man, as long as there's food around, they're pretty easily kind of, always there. And one of the things for me over the last couple of years that I don't talk a lot about online, everybody knows I have an ex-wife. It's not surprising. You know, lots of people do. And I have 50-50 custody with my kids. And one of the things that when I got divorced, I don't think I've ever talked about online, is up until the moment of divorce, I don't think I'd ever spent 3 consecutive nights in a different place from my kids, because even if I had business trips, I would get there as fast as I could and get back. And I would make it as short as I could because I wanted to be home. I wanted to raise my own kids. I didn't want to farm it out to somebody.
Sure.
And I changed my career a lot so that I could do that. And my now ex-wife, would do things where she would travel to Japan and other stuff for 3 weeks at a time. She didn't care the same way she doesn't care about her kids, but she looked at it differently than I did. I wanted to be there every day. And when I got divorced, it was like, okay, I got to spend 7 days without my kids because I have them for 7 days and they're with her for 7 days and back and forth and back and forth. And I think that first year I'd have gone nuts had it not been for the dog, right? I mean, the dog was sort of always there and always like, one thing about Chloe, the one that was just here a second ago, right about 7:30 every night, man, she comes along and like smacks me with a toy. It's like, okay, it's playtime right now. It's playtime. Bring it on. Throw this, or I'm just going to keep hitting you with it, right? And it's just so persistent that it's right about the same time every night. If I don't get out of bed on time, she's right there in my face, like smacking me with a paw. Mostly because it's time for her to eat, but I like to pretend it's because she really likes me, which she does. But
When I was in middle school and high school, I had a Lhasa Apso that my dad actually got from a client of his. He was doing some reno work, and they were talking about how I don't remember the reasons. It doesn't really matter. They couldn't take care of the dog anymore. Mm-hmm. And so my dad called my mom and said, hey, you got to come get this dog. And so this was when I was in middle school, and my mom pulled up in the pickup line and opens the door to the truck, and there's this dog. And I was blown. It was love at first sight. He became my dog, and he was wonderful, and he did not tolerate me sleeping late. So he would bound up onto my bed and start digging at my pillow and barking directly into my face. I loved Winston to pieces. He was a absolute drill sergeant in the mornings.
So I sent you a picture of mine when she was much younger, along with my daughter when she was much younger. You know, she was less than a year old there. My daughter, probably 3-ish, maybe 4. But not very old. But you know, this is the kind of stuff that you just can't replace, right? So one of my kids, not the one shown here, was actually petrified of dogs before I got one. Mm-hmm. Could not be around him. But I think one of the things that you gain from having a pet is you learn empathy. You learn how to kind of have those feelings for something other than yourself. And I think it's something men especially have issues with. My daughter had no problem, as you can see. Yeah. One of my sons did, but he was petrified of dogs. So I'm like, how am I going to get him over this? Well, the reason I picked Jack Russell was because when they're puppies, they weigh like about the same as a Beanie Baby, and they're kind of that same size. So when she came home, she was like the size of a stuffed animal, and I made a big deal out of it. I told the kids, I'm like, oh, you know, we've got a pet coming home. We got this thing. You're going to like it. You know, I didn't even tell them it was a pet. I was like, you're going to have this big thing. When I get home, you're going to love it. And they looked at me like, why'd you bring home a stuffed animal? And then she blinked, and they went, oh my God. And, you know, next thing you know, that middle kid who's, you know, is completely over his fear of dogs, and he'll go off and wrestle with massive ones now. And he did 3 weeks after he had this puppy around. But I think having her be so small and so innocent and so nice and, you know, lick you in the face, you got him over the fear of bigger ones. And, you know, I think that fear could have caused him to have a lot of social problems later on, because what do you do when you go to a family's house who has a dog, right? You can't go in there, right? You can't say, oh, leave the dog outside while I come in. That's not the way it works, right? So I think especially from a mental health perspective, I think having pets around is really important because they give us far more than we give them, I think, sometimes.
Yeah,
especially,
unquestionably.
Especially men. You know, we don't really seek mental help and ask for help on a very regular basis. We suck at it.
Right.
So I think, you know, especially as I get older, I see the real value in having a dog around just because it kind of keeps you, it gives you a reason to get out of bed in the morning when you might not otherwise really have one.
It really does. And I mean, that it's funny you bring that. So I, back around 2000, 99 or 2000, this company I was working for had a real great department head, and he and his girlfriend invited myself and my wife to dinner, and they were super laid back people. This was not like, you know, the 1950s sitcom, you know, I'm going over to the boss's house for dinner and dressed in a suit, you know. So we went over there, and he had two yellow lab girls who were, they were in, you know, what they call the teenage years. Now, if you don't own dogs, that does not mean that they were 13 and 14 years old. That means they were around
2, 3.
yeah, yeah, basically kind of rambunctious and testing their boundaries.
And labs at 2, man.
Yeah. So his girls, I sat on the floor of the living room. Just, you know, I just leaned back against the couch, and they swarmed me. Yes, two dogs swarmed me. And the two things that seemed to drive them nuts was I had my hair back in a ponytail. Well, that just weirded them out. They wanted to know why I had a tail on the back of my head and tried to get my ponytail holder out without hurting me. I should point out they weren't like biting and clawing. They you know, I could just feel them like, what's going on back there? You get rid of that tail. And I was laughing and kind of leaned over on my side and closed my eyes, and I opened, and one of the dogs was like 6 inches from my face, and she reached up and just kind of mashed down on my nose with her paw. Didn't step, like raised her paw and went boop. Like, wake up, stop it. So I fell in love with labs then. And a few years later, gosh, I guess probably around 2005, we got in touch with a rescue. And that's something I want to mention real quick. Get your pets from rescues. If you're going to do that, rescue your pet. There are too many animals and not enough us. Please don't go to a breeder. It's one thing if you're doing champion show dogs, but if you just want a companion, go to a rescue. That doesn't mean you have to take some maladjusted, sick, elderly animal. Go to a rescue.
Oh,
they will help you.
Around here, I mean, they usually have any number of 1-year-old and down dogs. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah.
Around Christmas time, they actually put like little pet adoption things in the malls here in Dallas. And
you know. So we started working with, and I mean that in the actual sense, working with Labrador Retriever Rescue of Florida. And LRROF introduced us to Onyx, who was she was 6, black lab. She had a long pedigree. She was neutered because she was born with a spine problem. If you looked at her when she was sitting down, her back, she was basically a sway back. Her spine curved to the left a little bit. So they were like, well, we can't produce any more of her line. She's got a genetic problem, but we adopted her, and she was she was a very dignified and particular lady, but it was clear she was getting bored. She was bored with life. So we adopted Lulu, a yellow lab, who was as dumb as the day was long. She was a mess. She was a child of divorce. Literally, one of the people in the divorce wanted to get her just to keep her out of the other person's hands, and then promptly just let her loose on a big acreage in Dade County and didn't really take care of her until they decided, well, you know, X doesn't have them anymore, so whatever, I don't want the dog anymore. So we adopted Lulu, and they were inseparable, and we lost them at 11 and 13. Cancer got Lulu, and then Onyx had a bad digestive issue that at her age, surgery to fix it, she probably would not have survived.
So,
But
I got to tell you a lab story about one of my neighbors.
okay, I want to hear a lab story.
Let me indulge in a lab story that I think is funny. I have this neighbor who lives up the street from me, whose woman divorced not that long ago. Retirement age, so kind of still consults a little bit, but doesn't necessarily work as often as some of us do that go to work every day. But made her money kind of. She's late 50s, early 60s, someplace. Little tiny Asian woman, very skinny, goes for walks all the time, very fit kind of person. Got a lab puppy and decided she could take the lab for walks. Fast forward to the lab is a year old and 105 pounds. Guess who's walking who?
Yes.
So every once in a while you'll see her you'll hear this, Riley! Riley's the dog. And Riley will be pulling this woman across the street because it saw a bunny rabbit and went, ooh, I want to go look at that. So, labs, I love labs to death because they're the biggest kids in the world.
Yeah.
They may not be the smartest dogs ever, but some of them are, but some of them are just dumb. But they're always well-intentioned, friendly, and ooh, I want to play with you. So,
yeah, I mean, I love the Wikipedia entry for Labradors that says they are notoriously poor guard dogs because of their notable lack of aggression.
My mother had one for a while that was afraid of kind of everything. And if somebody knocked on the door, I don't care if it was UPS or whoever, he would bark from behind a piece of furniture. So here's 110-pound monstrous, massive bark. And he'd be like, woof. And everybody oh my God, I'm so afraid of him. I'm like, yeah, don't be. I got news for you. If you yell at him, he's going to pee and run away. Meanwhile, she had this it was huge. It was 3/4 Siberian Husky, 1/4 Timberwolf or something. It was huge. Beautiful dog. Mm-hmm. Never barked, never said a word, but if anybody broke in the house, the lab would scare things while the other dog was just ripping them apart. Because he was the best guard dog ever. He was very careful. He would always watch new people until you got comfortable with him. He was never totally aggressive, but I think if you ever tried to attack my mom or dad, it would have been that was over for you.
Yeah. So you have chosen death.
So you've chosen poorly.
My after Onyx and Lulu, I was like, that's it. Thank you. I will never love dogs again. I mean, I was just like, I cannot. I unfollowed the lab rescue on social media. We gave away all of our the crates we had and yada yada yada. I was just like, my sweet girls are gone, and I'm done. And 6 months later, Colleen is like, "Ooh, Bill, LRROF is having a meet and greet at the PetSmart over in Sanford." I was like, "Oh, they're going to be down at Seminole County Services." And I was like, "I don't want to go see dogs. I don't want another goddamn dog. Stop asking me." And Colleen got really insistent about it to the point that she was like, "Okay, I have a long weekend off from work. It was Columbus Day weekend, October of 2012, and she's like, there's a lab up in Tallahassee. We're gonna go see that lab. We're gonna go meet that lab." And I was like, "Yeah, fine. We'll go see the lab, and then we won't come home with a lab. That's fine." We came home with a lab. It was Zeus. It took me about 30 seconds to realize that he was going to be our dog. And I think this picture,
he gave you the puppy dog eyes, didn't he?
The exact puppy dog eyes. This picture is from the weekend that we got him. And this dog is the smarts he exhibits. I should have sent him to college in 2012 instead of me wasting my money. I should have just tried to get him a bachelor's degree in CS, because he is as they say in certain parts of the country, he's wicked smart.
It's wicked smart.
Wicked smart. Um, he has the most adorable damn habit, and I love it to death. He hasn't been doing it since he had the vertigo, because I think it kind of throws his balance off, although he wants to. The first couple of years we had him, he had this habit of we'd go out the front door to go on a walk around the neighborhood, and he would practically take me off my feet, running in circles, pulling on the leash, like he was looking for something. Like he desperately wanted to find something. And he would always grab a stick or a little palm frond butt or something. He would bring it, and he would carry it, and he'd walk around holding it in his mouth. And and he'd want to bring it back in when we got back from the walk. And I'd let them collect on the porch, and he'd grab one. And he liked chasing frisbee, and he liked chasing tennis balls. But my wife, very intuitive, she got this length of rope at PetSmart on the way home from work one day. It's like this long, and it's like a 2-inch hawser. It is a thick, heavy duty piece of rope. You know, it's like, what do you have for home defense, Bill? I have my dog's toy. You know, and it's tied in knots. I think if you untied it, it would probably be 4 feet long. But ever since then, that is his thing. And with the exception of the recovery time that he's going on right now, if we go to the vet, when we would take him over to our in-laws, wherever he went, rope goes with him. And he'll carry it in his mouth, and the neighbors think this is the neatest thing. I have had people stop their cars, roll down their windows. Did you train him to do that? I'm like, kinda, maybe, I don't know. He just does it, you know. He is kind of the man of the people, that Zeus, because he loves his rope, and his smarts are just kind of off the charts, and he's bounced back. This is right here. I think this is his first Christmas with us. I love that damn photo.
You're his pillow. You know you're not allowed to move when he gets in that
Oh,
position.
no. I was not. He wanted to go out. I was tired because, we had little kids at that time. The girls were young. I wanted to just kind of kick back and relax, and he climbed up on the couch and sniffed me furiously, and I was like, okay, all right, dude, well, we'll go out when we go out. So he snuggles over to me and rests just what you see there. And his front feet are not standing on the floor. They're literally just hanging there. So if I was going to get up, I was going to walk him. And Colleen got that picture, and it's just us, it's him and me. So yeah, I rather love this dog. And that is from his that is from his recent follow-up visit at the vet, when they said that they were astounded, because even the vet tech that I talked to, she was like, yeah, when you guys brought him in, and they brought him in on the stretcher, and I was like, I don't know if he's gonna make it. Whoops. So the fact that he walked in under his own power was pretty was pretty astounding to them. I am sorry for your loss, Death Angels. But he just kind of makes me happy, he's my little constant satellite that orbits me, and I for all the messes I've had to clean up and the most recent, you know, nightmare scare with a vet and everything, Tim, I would not trade this dog for the world.
So, labs and ropes, man. I don't know what it is, but those labs, every lab I've ever known had a rope that it just loved, and it was like it was their thing. I don't know what it is about that, but like my dog, my Jack Russell won't touch ropes so much, but she has this like plush bunny rabbit that is her go-to toy. The thing's like 4 years old. I don't know how it survived this long, because whenever she gets this bunny, she gets like grabs its ears and beats it on the floor like it's talked about her mother. It's like, here's this 12-pound dog just beating the crap out of this thing, and then she'll come up to you with it like, okay, throw it now. It's like, okay. And then Jack Russell's being Jack Russell's. My kids call her the furry missile because she's really fast, especially for her size. She'll go to the dog park, and actually her favorite breed of dog to play with is Labrador. She weighs 13 pounds. I got to point that part out. She looks at little dogs like they're a waste of time to play with, because her favorite thing to do in the world is to go to the dog park and smack a Labrador in the head.
Oh, no.
And then run as fast as she can the other direction, which is pretty darn fast. Now, here's the fun part. She's a smart dog. She will cut it. If the lab gets too close, she'll cut a corner the lab can't possibly cut and find it humorous. And occasionally she will cut a corner really close to a fence that the lab can't possibly cut and watch as the lab goes, bam!
Oh.
And if that doesn't work, she'll run under a chair a human is sitting on and then just sit down like, can't get me here. So her favorite thing in the world is actually labs, and she doesn't really like huskies that much. She finds them high strung, but labs and German shepherds are her two big ones that she just absolutely loves.
Oh.
She does not find small dogs to be that much fun. Although it's funny, she's like afraid of nothing on the planet. Like, this dog is just crazy. She'll go nuts if somebody knocks on the door. She doesn't care. She's friendly as can be. She's just not afraid of anything, except for one of my other pets, which I'll share in a window. She is petrified of Blueberry, and I can't figure out why. Every once in a while,
because it's a face hugger, Tim.
she's like that big. But Blueberry will come out looking for. I mean, she doesn't come out of her terrarium, but she climbs up on the glass or whatnot, and she'll look around like, hey, what's going on? And Chloe will like start to cry and look at it funny, like, what is that? I don't understand. It climbed glass and sat there.
I think the first time, like the second time, literally the second time you and I ever met in the virtual space, that picture or one like it was your friggin' like live backdrop. I'm like, oh, I'm going to talk to this guy, Tim Imholt. He seems pretty interesting. And, I click on and I bring you on. I was like, ah!
It's not an owlbear. It's okay. Now, the funny part is
owlbears just want to hug, Tim.
I know, right? The funny part is I got that after I got Blueberry after I got divorced. But I find Blueberry very interesting. Because number one, she eats crickets. Like, that's her diet is crickets.
Okay.
It's all she ever eats. I fed her a cockroach once, but I had to, anyway. She'll also eat mealworms, but basically insects is her life.
Sure.
And I find it interesting because when people come over, and normally she hides, like, she's not a very social spider. She likes to hide, but she has this spider web that she's spun that she kind of hides in the middle of. Mm-hmm. And you can't really see through it. It's very thick. People are like, what's in there? I'm like, it's a spider. And if she's not out, everybody's okay. But the moment she comes out, everybody's like, whoa, hold on. And then sometimes people will sit there and look at her and go, it's actually a really pretty spider. I'm like, yeah, she can't hurt you. She's not coming out. So it's like, but see, if you look at her, she's kind of blue, she's kind of green, she's kind of brown. She's actually kind of a pretty spider. I live in Texas. I don't live in Florida, but we have some funky stuff here too.
Yeah.
But she's a pretty spider. I actually pet her one day and she kind of just sat there like, okay, what's your point? She did freak me out one day. I don't know if anybody realizes this, but tarantulas have this exoskeleton like all spiders do. and they will molt. And when they molt, their exoskeleton comes off essentially in one piece, so it looks exactly like another spider is in the cage. And I thought she was dead one day because she was over on her back and kind of twitchy, and I was like, oh my God, something, the spider died. I was like, okay, whatever. So I went back to my office and did some work. I came back and, oh, there's two spiders. I'm like, that's weird. So I go Google it, and of course I find out spiders molt, and one of them is the actual spider, one of them is the old exoskeleton. And sometimes the actual spider won't move for like a day after that. So you have to like, okay, I'm not going to go get the exoskeleton out right now because I don't really know which one it is.
That's right. I get the exoskeleton and threw the spider away. What have I done?
I'm going to give it a moment, right? So you give it a day and wait till one moves, and then you pull the other one out and throw it away. But it's like a snake shedding its skin. It's the same kind of thing. But it comes off in one piece, full color. It's weird.
I am so I do, I would be remiss. I would think the pet gods would probably frown on it if I didn't mention this. When I lost Winston, I had Winston from, I think, the end of my 8th grade in middle school until I was in college. I was in college and employed as either I was in my early 20s or late teens, but because he was a few years old. He was 4 or 5 years old when we got him. And hey, Canadian Ollie man, good to see you. We're talking pets. We're talking our furry friends today. But a few days after Winston had passed, my mom was out on the patio doing laundry, and I hear her say, "Hey, you wait a minute now." And I kind of looked out in the living room, and there's a sunbeam. The sun was shining just right. And I look, and there's this fuzzy black and white Norwegian cat that has walked into our living room, laid down on the carpet right in the sunbeam, and just kind of closed his eyes and hunkered up. Like he just showed up. He is like, I see you have a vacancy. Allow me to present my resume. I am a cat. So that was when Bootsy adopted us, and I had Bootsy probably for, let's see, that would have been 90 maybe, 89 or 90, and he made it all the way to 2005, and it was the next year we adopted our first labs. So I had Bootsy for a good long stretch, and he I remember when we made this decision to adopt the cat, I was like, well, it's a cat. We'll take him to the vet and get him checked out. I'm sure everything will work. It'll work out. Yeah. Our free cat that cost us $180.
So did you see, it's about a year ago now, or a year and a half ago, you're on YouTube, so you know who Mr. Beast is, right?
Yeah.
Did you see the thing he did where he gave away 100 dogs? So he went to a kill shelter or something, and I'm working from memory, so if anybody knows the actual answer here, please correct me if I'm wrong. But he went to a kill shelter and adopted everything.
Okay.
And then he opened a facility to like give them away for free, because the adoption fees can get expensive for some people, right?
They can.
So he gave them away with supplies and everything else for free, but then he gave away like a long period of time of vet bills and dog food and all kinds of other stuff for people that just couldn't afford it. So he gave them away to actually pay for the dog over time, because like this one goes to the vet and it's a couple $100, right? Yeah. So some people can't afford that. But hey, Mr. Beast was nice enough not just to give away free pets, but to give away free pet care, pet food, all kinds of stuff. It was amazing to watch him do this. And some of the happiness on people's faces, like, well, I couldn't afford a dog before, but if you're going to do all that, I mean, I kind of get one.
That is really decent of him, and I'm glad that he was that he was willing to do that. I mean, the guy, and rightly so, I should point out, gets a lot of flack, but that that was a really decent thing for him to do.
When he does good stuff, he does
When,
good stuff, right?
when he does good stuff, he does good stuff.
When he does stunts, I'm like, okay, that's just stupid, but
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is what it is.
But Canadian Ollie Man, have we played any Baldur's Gate 3? I haven't played any Baldur's Gate 3. Tim, have you played any Baldur's Gate 3?
I haven't either, and honestly, I thought about getting it a year ago or so when it came out. And I kind of was reluctant to do so because I was kind of busy with a lot of stuff going on at that point. And now I'm just waiting for the new Doom, so I'm not gonna pick it up.
And I am very much a wait until all the season passes expire and all the DLC is available and it hits a Steam sale. It's like buy everything now for $19.99 and save $84. So when I see Baldur's Gate hit a deep sale, that's probably when I'll pick it up. Just it's just my economic situation, you know. Which to kind of hop back to the pet thing, I want to say this right now. I mentioned it before, but it bears mentioning again. A lot of folks were yeah, that's right. Your dog knows what it's all about. A lot of folks helped with the situation with zoos. Emergency vets are not cheap. Like a vet visit can be costly, even if you're on a care plan, which we have for Zeus. But we called our vet, and they're like, "Take him to an emergency vet now. If you bring him here, we might not be able to see him in time." So, you know, we went up to the emergency vet, and they were like, "Here's what this is going to cost you," and of course, they're not going to start doing it and then do it, and then you say, "Oh, I can't pay you, bye," you know. So a lot of folks, I thank you all very much. I have a plan for at least some kind of recompense. So thank you, everyone. And please, if you're considering adopting a pet, keep that in mind. Any pet, even just basic care, especially these days, is going to be a chunk out of a budget. I think it's an incredibly rewarding experience to own a pet, but just like taking care of your kids, make sure you can do it before you make that decision.
And it's not the day-to-day cost that you have to really. I mean, day-to-day cost for my dog is essentially not much because she does. I mean, she's 13 pounds. How much can she eat?
Right.
But an annual cost you can kind of predict, but it's those emergency things that pop up. And
Yeah.
like with kids, right? You can never predict the emergency, and mine are teenagers, so everything to them is an emergency now. But somehow they think I'm a walking ATM. It's like, Dad, I need 200. Anyway, but you know, it can get pricey. Like I had a bit of a scare with Chloe. Oh gosh, 3 months ago, where she was scratching at an eye really bad, and I couldn't get her to stop. So I got the inflatable donut collar, and I'm like, okay, I'll just get her to stop scratching her eye. But it kept swelling up and swelling up and swelling up, and I was like, okay, I took her to the vet, right? And I think it boiled out to be $450 later. We found out that my dog was allergic to something, and she needed an allergy shot. It's like, yeah, but $450, it doesn't sound like a lot, but for some people, that could ding your budget to the point where you're like, okay, do I pay the electric bill late? Do I, what's it boiled down to, right? So, because sometimes it's a zero sum game, and I read someplace like 60% of the U.S. lives paycheck to paycheck. And if you're in that category, those little moments can be expensive, right? So you got to keep either a little pile of money someplace for the dog and kids or whoever to get hurt, or credit cards or something. But it can be daunting. But you know, those are the things you do have to consider when you adopt a pet. And I'm glad you got it. You got Zeus, you know, on the mend. He looks, you know, infinitely better than he did a week ago.
Yeah. I mean, again, the techs, the tech told me, yeah, when you guys brought him in, I didn't know if he was going to go home. I didn't think he was going to go home. But and that the eye thing that got us. I think it was winter of 2020. It's like January of 2021, or maybe 22. I'd have to go back and look. Probably 22, but uh, yeah, Zeus, we were playing in the backyard and he ran into some bushes. I didn't really think about it because I was throwing his rope and, I was just throwing it wherever it went, and it went off in some brambles, and, he came back. And just over time, like his eye was constantly dripping and he was constantly blinking, and it turned out his cornea got scratched.
It can happen, man. They're scratching with their nails or something and
Yeah.
running through a bush or whatever. It just, all kinds of
Yeah.
bad things can happen. And
So,
I have a friend who's a vet who said basically vets, and you don't think about these things, right? But vets basically go to medical school, but for animals, right? It's
mhm.
essentially like being an MD in ways. But your patients can't tell you what's wrong, right? So I walk into the doctor and I can kind of tell you what's wrong. A vet doesn't have that privilege, right? It's like it's a mystery from the get go in some ways. So they actually have to have better bedside manner in some cases than
Yeah.
MDs do.
Oh, unquestionably. I mean, here, you know, if if I woke up one morning with vertigo, I could look at my wife and I could say, I am really dizzy. Every direction seems to be both up and down, and I can't focus my eyes, and my eyes feel like they're crossing. Um, and she'd get me to the hospital and say, "Hey, my husband has vertigo," uh, and they'd ask me a few questions about any other symptoms I feel, and they say, "Okay, well, you've got vertigo. It happens, and here's anti-nausea, and here's tranquilizers to keep you from flipping out if that's your deal," and then they'd send me home. With Zeus, did he have a stroke? Did he have a heart attack? Did he dislocate his hips and that's why he can't walk? Um, was it a sudden tumor? You don't know because he can't say.
Right. All he can do
So
is kind of give you puppy dog eyes and cry.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, at that point, all you can do is test for everything.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine going to the hospital again, going back to you or I wake up with vertigo and you go to the hospital and you just refuse to answer any questions.
Yeah.
And they're like,
Well, let's
okay,
face it.
well,
Let's face it. We're guys. We wouldn't go to the hospital. We would just refuse to
yeah.
answer questions.
Daniel Rowan says Mrs. Delver would have Bill put down. Yeah, it's time for you to cross a rainbow bridge, hon. Um, but
Go into the light. Go into the light.
yeah, and then she can inherit my vast fortune. Um, but
Tens of dollars of
tens of dollars. Hey, I've got some Gygax signed OD&D books that would at least pay
hundreds
for a
of
nice copy.
dollars.
Hundreds of dollars. But anyway,
So so
yes,
Death Angel. I mean, we make jokes of it, right? So I want to put something out when it comes to pets and men especially. Um, Mental health matters, and as you get older, it matters. All younger, older, it doesn't really matter. It matters, right? But men always make this joke, like if you go to your friends sometimes and say, "Ooh, I'm struggling with something, whatever it is." Sometimes that's how men treat each other. Walk it off, rub some dirt on it. We don't really know how to respond to that kind of stuff, right? We just don't know. Dogs might help you through those moments. And what's funny is I'm dating a woman now who's been a therapist for 25 years, I think. I'm not supposed to tell people how long because that would tell people how old she is, but she's Gen X, so it's been a while. Um, and it she said that the toughest patients are always men because it takes you 4 sessions to get them to admit that they're in pain. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah. And I've talked about that. I mean, I'm not a mental health professional, and as much of a soft boy as I can be sometimes, I too have a little bit of difficulty talking about it. But yeah, I went to a counselor back about 10 years ago, and he essentially, based on some things that I had been through as a child and some things that I was going through as an adult, he said, well, just, in the initial workup, I think what we're dealing with is this, and then he mentioned PTSD. And I was like, dude, I don't have PTSD. I've never been in combat. I haven't had to land a 747 by myself, or
Nothing to do with it.
yeah, it has nothing to do with it. And I saw it was so serendipitous. Literally a couple. It's like I emotionally and mentally rejected that, not because I didn't want to be perceived as weak, but because I didn't think I quote unquote deserved that level of diagnosis. There's a gentleman, and now his name's gone right out of my head. But if any of you guys have ever seen the HBO mini series Generation Kill, or read the book by Evan Wright, may he rest in peace. Nathan Fick. Nathan Fick was one of the two commanders of the Marine Reconnaissance Unit that Wright followed into Iraq. And it was just kind of no, I'm sorry. It was not Nathan Fick. It was Brad Colbert. And someone went to his house and did an interview with him. And it's literally just like 30 seconds that he talks about this. But he talks about his time in the Marines and so on. And he says, the Marines spent 21 years making me a fighting man. And they gave me 2 hours to adjust to being a civilian. Literally just filling out some paperwork and becoming a civilian. And he started talking about PTSD. And he said, we have such a terrible view of mental health in this country. And we've convinced people that PTSD is something that only a guy like me can get. Whatever sets you off, whatever triggers you, if that's your diagnosis, it's valid. If a mental health care professional says you are suffering from a trauma, it's just as real for you as it is for me. And that rocked me back on my heels. It really did. And it came right in that time span between visits to the shrink. And I was like, here is this jolly green giant, this like 10-foot tall killing machine who has just laid it out flat like he was speaking straight to me. And having a great family and loving pets helped quite a bit with that.
It's so like I'm an Army veteran. Okay, I've been out for a very long time, so I was pre Gulf War on Terror, but I have friends who got out after that. And I worked on a number of book projects with a guy named Mike Garst. Mike, if you're listening, yes, I'm outing you a little bit because your name is all over my books anyway, so it's too late, buddy. I've known Mike since 1980 something. We were in high school together. Mike's now a former combat medic, Afghanistan. He has a Purple Heart. He has other stuff. And he had some severe PTSD issues that even he wouldn't really admit to. But one of the things that he fought for years, and I'm still fighting in some ways, is that transition between, oh, you're a killing machine. See ya. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
And there's really no kind of class on how to go be human again. Right. So it's just have a nice day.
Yeah. We'll spend 9 months and then another 2 years teaching you to fight. We won't spend 90 minutes teaching you to not fight.
No, it's sign here. Here's your plane ticket. Have a nice day. Right. Go.
Yeah.
But the thing with PTSD is, and I found this out much later in life, is that the stress from military comes over, it's intense stress over short periods of time, typically. Some deployments got longer and longer, but the combat stress is over a short period of time. The stress of maybe being blown up, maybe not, comes over longer periods of time, but it's a lower level of stress. So stress is stress to whoever you are. If you experience a certain amount of stress in your daily life, it kind of helps you get through, because it's just the way life is. You kind of have to deal with it. But if you go over what a normal level of stress is and you deal with it for a super long period of time, think of it like a coffee cup. You can only put so much coffee in it, right? The moment you get too much coffee in it, it overflows. Well, you can only take it out so fast. And if you're filling it faster than you can empty it, I don't care if it's stress from a job, stress from working at NASA when the shuttle blew up and you were there for a couple of days, stress from an abusive relationship, stress from shitty employers, stress from anything. If you're filling the glass faster than you can empty the glass, because humans can only empty it so quickly, you can suffer from PTSD. And men internalize it way too much. And I've noticed in the last 10 years, anyway, this is where pets become important, at least in my life. In the last 10 years or so, we've sort of, as a society, oh, girls' night out, girls need to go, stress relief. They need to go here, they need to go there, and stress relief. Men don't really have that anymore. We used to get together and do things. You and I get together online and play RPGs, but that's Tuesday nights. Men don't really have that. Let's go off and de-stress thing the way that used to exist. It's not there anymore. So we're like piling stress in, and that's where I think, especially for me as a guy, having pets around really helps, because it's sort of this thing that's sort of unconditional in your life and not really there to stress you out, and there to kind of like, okay, it's time to play now, right? Or it's time to take me out, or whatever. Find a cricket, feed it to me. In the case of Blueberry, even the snake can be somewhat nice to have around. But the snake's not that big. It's a tiny little snake.
Right.
But those things do matter, and that those methods of removing stress from your life are important. So whether that's in the form of a pet, or that's in the form of a hobby, or that's in the form of playing golf, which, by the way, adds more stress to my life than takes away, because the stupid ball never goes where I tell it to. Anyway, you have to have that sort of unconditional thing in your life, and pets really provide that. And for me, pets and fiction books, which if you follow my feed, I'm surrounded by, it kind of helps pull that thing out of your life. So people look at me as a little weird because I play video games as a form of stress relief, which, by the way, my girlfriend said is a good way to enjoy stress relief. So I'm allowed. She might just be being nice to me.
Not only is she a therapist, but she's an Alabama alum. So as far as I'm concerned, she's an authority on everything.
Okay.
Roll down
disc golf is better than golf, actually. And the only reason I play golf anymore is because there's a person with drinks that comes around and gives them to you, and it gives me some exercise and an excuse to drink. Now that my son has his driver's permit, he can actually drive me home from the golf course, which makes it even better. Woo-hoo! Because he's 15 and he has a learner's permit, but it doesn't say I have to be sober when I'm in the passenger seat. It only says I have to be there.
I will not test that assumption, Tim.
All right, I probably won't. But it doesn't necessarily say I have to be able to drive. Well, I'm in the passenger seat. It just says I have to be present. But it to me, it's like you have to have that form of stress relief. And pets are a great way to do it, and they're not harmful. They're not going to hurt your credit score if you go gambling too much. Daniel. Oh, gaming, not gambling. Sorry, I need to get my glasses checked. But those are the sorts of things that do really help, and they do help with stress relief. And whatever it is, you got to have that stress outlet, or it just doesn't work. So it's like, especially me, I own a social media business, and I stay active on social media, and every once in a while I post something I didn't mean to, and I'm not going to talk about what it is. But, I posted something this morning that was like kicking over a hornet's nest, and I thought it was innocuous, right? But I'm like, good Lord, some people are stressed out. And we need to get back to a point as a society where stress relief is okay for everybody. And I think for men, especially, pets can help make the difference.
It is, and I'm not gonna. That's a little caustic. I'm not going to share that, but I am going to share this one because this is absolutely door. I saw this on the internet, and if anybody wants this, I will share this on social media. Let me see if I can find it. This popped up on Reddit. Yes, Reddit actually did something good. I love this. In the dog world, humans are elves that routinely live to be 500 plus years old. And, it's got the react there from one of the guys on Friends. I never watched Friends. I don't know who that is. And then it just kind of goes down. I'm sorry?
It's Joey.
Joey, okay. They live so long, but the good ones still bond with us for our entire lives. These immortals are so kind. We must be good friends to them. And then there's some reactions from people, and somebody says, point of view fantasy slice of life book when? This is, Tim, I think you could write this. I think you could probably write this and get this published. And I guess it's a dog's point of view. Now I'm old, the fur around my muzzle is gray, and my joints ache when we walk together. Yet she remains unchanged. Her hair still glossy, her skin still fresh, her step still sprightly. Time doesn't touch her, and yet I love her still. And then there's last little bit here. For generations, he has guarded over my family. Since the days of my great, 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 great grandfather, he has kept us safe. For so long, we thought him immortal, but now I see differently. For just as my fur grows gray and my joints grow stiff, so too do his. He did not take in my children, but gave them away to his. I will be the last that he cares for. My only hope is that I'm able to last until his final moments. The death of one of his kind is so rare. The ending of a life so long is such a tragedy. He has seen so much, he knows so much. I know he takes comfort in my presence. I only wish that I will be able to give him this comfort until the end. I absolutely love that, and it almost chokes me up every time I read it. And I really, really hope in my heart of hearts that that we deserve that kind of love from animals and that they feel that way about us.
I hope so too. So I've got one in the window if you can share it.
Yes, I will. Yes, I
That
will.
that I think sums up especially labs. So pets sometimes will kind of remind you what's important in life. Like, I'm a business owner, so I tend to work a lot because I don't want to let people down. Because my philosophy is if I have a job and I lose my job, that's my mistake. If I have a job, if I have a job and I screw up and I get fired, that's my mistake. As a business owner, if I screw up, like a lot of people lose their jobs, and I don't really want to have that happen because I feel bad. But sometimes animals will remind you kind of what's important. Like here's a puppy at the beach. He's like, "Oh, it's time to go." The puppy's like, "Oh no, it's not." Like,
The yellow lab will stay at the beach. Thank you.
no, we're not leaving yet, Mom. It's time to stay here. And so sometimes, like the animals around you will kind of remind you that maybe it's okay to take a step back once in a while and say what really is important. Because otherwise, I could wind up on live streams or Zoom meetings 15 hours a day. I don't want to do that anymore.
Exactly. And I have one more story to share, and then Tim, I'll let you close us out if you've got anything. Zeus was absolutely not allowed on the bed. My wife would go to work in the morning. I have been the stay-at-home dad, even though I have had part-time work, and I do a lot of work from home for IT writing and stuff too. But as a stay-at-home dad, my wife would go to work, and when she was gone, just almost one paw at a time, Zeus would climb up on me and lay on top of me. Now, even when we first got him, he was still a good 50, 60 pounds, right? So I'm pinned down in bed. I'm sound asleep. He did it slowly enough that it didn't wake me up. So I'm basically pinned in bed, my alarm's screaming, but I have an electric blanket on me, and I'm in deep, deep, deep sleep. There were more than a couple of days when the kids were almost late to school because that damn dog would climb up and basically hug me to try and make me stay in bed. And I love him to pieces for it.
So the only thing I want to share is that we live in a stressful world, and I think it's important for people to find more joy. And if you'll share the screen again, Bill. I want to find a way in my life, and I want everybody to find a way in their life to be as happy as this dog is in this mud pit.
And again, I should point out, this is a Labrador.
It's a Labrador on full Labrador mode.
Absolutely.
He's like, oh yeah, this is the good stuff. And somehow I'm going to bet that same Labrador runs when you say the word bath.
No doubt. Guys, find your mud puddle and share it with a fuzzy friend. Find your mud puddle.
Exactly.
All right, Tim, thanks for hanging out with me today, man. I had a lot of fun just not talking about other stuff.
But avoiding the other stuff these days.
Avoiding the other stuff. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll be on Inappropriate Characters tonight with Ryan David. I've shared the link out to social media, of course. Tim, you will be with us playing AD&D on Tuesday, yes? Speaking of de-stressing.
And hopefully there won't be a TPK, so...
Hopefully there won't be a TPK. It'll be exciting stuff. You guys should tune in. Everybody, please check out Tim's channel. I'm going to... I need to update, but I'll link Tim's channel in the description down below. Thank you all, wonderful people, for hanging out with us today. Death and sharing your pet stories. Daniel Rowan, Death Angel Shadow, little bit of chit chat with Canadian about Baldur's Gate 3, which is always fun too, and everybody else who is out there in TV land. I will now leave you with the Song of My People, which of course has the anthem for the great and mighty owlbear. Peace. I'll see you all around.
No owlbears.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around, some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle way off course? Naked as a toad all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the show.